These 2 days, I heard many ways through which the collaborative economy could scale. I heard about you need to feed a community, you have to uphold a strong culture. Some other people mention investors and venture capitalists, others mention trust. In my opinion, the best way through which the collaborative economy could scale is with cities. And cities have an amazing power, and this power is called purchasing. They have purchasing power. Cities are by far the largest consumer and buyers in the economy. Cities are responsible for 19% of GDP all over the world. In some countries like Belgium, there are even more than 40% of GDPs come from cities. So you can understand the impact. Now, the European Union has been really instrumental in helping cities to set the right environmental criteria and targets for their public tenders so they could mainstream sustainable consumption and production. I think it's high time now that cities become the champions of the collaborative economy. Like this? Yeah. The cities become champions of the collaborative economy. They could incentivize this market and ultimately buy goods, services, works which are provided by collaborative economy enterprises. So opportunities for public-private partnership are abundant, and I hope our distinguished panelists of today will reflect on these topics and many more. So we have a fantastic panel made of the city of Bordeaux, Amsterdam, Ghent, and Rio de Janeiro. And this panel runs for 45 minutes. We need to be very strict. So I'll ask each of you to have within 5 minutes to both introduce yourself and shoot a couple of very powerful and short statements around this subject. So, ladies first, I would say. We start with the case of Amsterdam.
Thank you, Marco. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Carlien Roding. My daytime job is working for the Amsterdam Economic Board. And that's a partnership of the various local governments in the Amsterdam area. So it's not only Amsterdam as a city, but also the somewhat smaller cities around Amsterdam. It's a partnership also with research institutions and universities, and with corporations and SMEs. So we are working in a sort of triple helix concept. The goal of the Amsterdam Economic Board is to foster innovation and economic growth in the Amsterdam area. And as the Amsterdam Economic Board, we are very interested in the sharing economy. But also I have to state that not every stakeholder is involved at the same level. Many speakers before stated and mentioned that some corporates still think that's just a marginal thing, and some other corporations are much more a sort of believer types of believer or evangelists of the sharing economy. So even within one organization like the board, you see different approaches towards the sharing economy. But for us, for me personally, the sharing economy and the role of the cities is very important, also regarding the future developments. Until a month ago, I was also a member of the City Council of Amsterdam, and that's probably one of the reasons I'm here also, because we voted for a rather progressive policy towards Airbnb. I think 2 or 3 months ago it was. And let me explain about that somewhat more. We as a city are not necessarily pro-Airbnb or against it, but we realize that peer-to-peer rental platforms will remain. So we have to learn as a city to cope with them. That's our main goal. We want to find solutions and avoid problems in the future. So that's why we are pretty much talking to Airbnb, and we are very grateful that Airbnb wants to talk and communicate with us also, because there are other platforms we are a little bit reluctant to do so, because they say we are only a platform. But you are more than a platform, but I can come back to that later. Yeah, the thing about Airbnb and all those other platforms is that it's not just about the tourist thing, getting tourists towards your city. That's also a great thing to do. But we also have to think about shortage of housings for our own inhabitants. So we are really careful not to drive out our own inhabitants out of their homes. We want to have an area in Amsterdam, especially the city center, where you can work, live, and recreate. So it's also there for leisure, but it's also there for our own people to work and live there. That's very important for us. Of course, we had some opposition from the hotel owners. They are regulated. They charge their guests for tourist taxes. So that's one thing we need to find a solution for. It goes without saying that also the guests from Airbnb have to be charged for tourist tax also. One of the things which is also really important for us as a city is the problems of exclusion. It's obviously that only if you are a homeowner that you can profit from Airbnb. But what about the people who don't manage to buy their own homes and have to rent it in the less popular areas of the city? So that's also very important for us to think about. Two major statements I want to make. They are more personal than city policy. What I think is really important for the future is that we get a sort of independency of platforms. So now there are many people on Airbnb, but if I want to move to another platform, it should be possible for me to move my profile with me to another platform. I think that's very important. We don't want too much dependency on just one platform. And the other thing I want to stress is that it's, as many speakers already stressed it, platforms are doing more and more what governments were used to do. So take that responsibility. You're not just a platform, you have a specific role towards a community, not only towards the ones who are participating on your platform, but also the ones who are not participating on the platform. For example, the neighbors of those apartments who are rented by Airbnb. So that's my statement.
Thank you, Carlin. So for a moment now, we do a step out of Europe and we'll go to Rio. So Theo, the floor is yours. Please introduce yourself, a very short statement. Okay. And do tell us who's going to win the World Cup.
I will.
I heard that Italy is going to win.
Yeah, if the World Cup takes place. Yeah, so I'm here actually, I think, to give a whole different perspective. I'm 25 years old, I'm from Rio, and I'm from a city we call the Wonderful City. And it's true, you might not call it this way, but we do. And it is, actually. It's a colorful city, a bright city, very cheerful, and it's a wonderful place to be. And I'm very proud to say we are hacking this city. We are working in a lot of initiatives to make it more open, more free, more distributed, more networked. I personally work in a project that joins the government, universities, companies, and the civic society to receive ideas from citizens, implement them in the city, test the hypothesis, and then scale them up as public policies. But this doesn't, so this initiative and others are hacking this city to make it better, to make it more shareable. But this doesn't tell the whole story. I come also from a city which is 7 million people, citizens. It's 10 times bigger than Amsterdam. and where a few people live better than in Switzerland, and some of the people live worse than Angola. And nothing against Angola, I've been there, it's a lovely country, but you get my point. And now we live a very special moment. In 30 days we will host the World Cup, probably. And I don't know if you guys know how big of a deal it is, but football is a major part of our identity. So it's a really big deal for us in Brazil. And not only that, we are the next city for the next Olympics. So in the last 5 or 6 years, Rio had more investment than in the last 30 or 40 years. It's changed the city. It changed the way the money used to circulate. It changed the way people used to circulate. It changed even the geography of the city. And I think our biggest challenge now is how to make this legacy for everybody. How to make the sharing economy really sharing, like sharing all the legacy from all this investment and all this transformation we made in the city, in our society. But how can we not hack just my Rio, but all of it? All 7 million people Rio, you know? How can we include the ones that are not included already in the consumption and will not be included in the collaborative consumption or any other kind of boxing we try to do. So I'm here actually much more to hear than to speak, much more to learn than to teach, and but mostly to instigate and provocate you, because I think the challenges are great, are huge, not just in Brazil, not just in Rio, in the whole world right now. But I really think collaboration is the way to go. Sharing is the way to go. And it's great to be here and hear so many new perspectives and new ways of thinking and new experiences to try to build this puzzle, which is for us still a very, very big chaos. But we are trying to.
Thank you, Theo. Now let's do a step back, and we come again to Europe. The city of Ghent. Ghent is a medium, small city, but it's extremely important in the collaborative economy space. Almost a front runner, I would say. So, Philip, tell us about it.
No, it's also a wonderful city. It's a city of 250,000 inhabitants. It's rather small, I admit. My name is Philippe Watteeuw. I'm Deputy Mayor of Mobility and Public Works. And that's since 1.5 years. We had in January 2013 a new local government with, for the first time, the Green Party. And I'm a member of the Green Party. And it's no coincidence that with the Green Party in the local government, we have chosen very much for initiatives from the inhabitants. And therefore, I'm here. About the shareable economy. I'm very glad about what happens, but I'm also very concerned. I'm very glad because we can, with the government, get away from the severe, rigid government who has many rules, who does everything by itself, no initiatives from the citizens. So we can get away from that, and we can have a coalition of government, local government, and citizens. I'm glad, and with the local government, we want to maximize the possibilities of the sharing economy. And therefore, there are 4 things that are needed, I think. The first thing is very, very difficult for a local government. We need a mind shift, because in former times, we did everything. We had the power. We could say something has to happen, and it happened. And now you see that citizens say, organizations, we will do things by ourselves. And so we have to admit as governors, as a government, that things have changed. Economy has changed, social life has changed, and so is policy, so is the local government. A mind shift with all the people of the local government. Two, we need a platform that facilitates the initiatives of inhabitants. We have in Ghent a climate alliance, and in that climate alliance, that's the platform where all initiatives, peer-to-peer initiatives, come together with the government. And therefore, in that platform, we search how we can help the initiatives of citizens. Three, we has to be an example. As a city, we have to be an example. If we believe in sharing economy, we should act like that. And so we give permission to use our data. We give permission to use our infrastructure. So we also take initiatives by ourselves. I'm busy for the moment with a car sharing plan for the whole city. And one of the ideas is to make every citizen in Ghent a member of the car sharing organization, so everyone can use or can share cars. And that's very difficult. We have to simplify our rules and our procedures, because everything is very complex in local government. And if you have initiatives from people, from organizations, that mostly they hope to go fast, and with many rules it's very difficult. So we have to simplify things. I said I'm glad, and I said what is needed, but I'm also very concerned. Why? Because there is also a dark side at the sharing economy, and I give an example. In Ghent, we try to get less cars in the city. It's a sustainable traffic is one of our major points. But we have an organization, Carambla. It's totally in the sharing economy. It uses open data and so on and so on. But it brings together demand and supply of parking places. So it means that for the moment, the city has mostly, I think, practically all parking places in Ghent. So that's a very powerful instrument to use to have less cars in the city. If Carambla does that with an own app and different manners of doing, if they bring together demand and supply of private parking places, our instrument loses power. So it's not sustainable. And a second concern, I'm very concerned about weaker government. I hope that the sharing economy is not the forerunner of a capitalist peer-to-peer economy with a weak government. And we need a solution for that.
Thank you. Without further ado, please.
Yes, my name is Stéphane Mahon. I'm not going to talk on behalf of Bordeaux. I'm going to talk about the Bordeaux case, but I have to just to precise that the Bordeaux city is represented here, but they let me talk about what we did last year. We organized as consultant for the Bordeaux territory. We organized the first Bordeaux Sharing Economy Forum, which was which took place in last July. It's interesting because when we started to work with the local authorities in Bordeaux, they asked us how they could raise awareness in Bordeaux apart from the wine image of Bordeaux. And they were also wondering what they could do in the field of economic. And we came up with this idea of the sharing economy because there were already a sort of seed within the territory, and we took advantage of this because the urban community and what we call the Cube, which is the Communauté Urbaine de Bordeaux, is already very involved in open government and open and collaborative process, especially in the field of environment. Without speaking of the huge bike sharing community which has been implemented in Bordeaux. So there was a sort of a state of mind. I must say they were ready. What I just want to stress here is we tried to do three important things. The first one is to make people understand, which was a real challenge because I think we have talked about that yesterday, but definitions are key. And I remember, for instance, being in a meeting with politics organization and local authorities, and someone asked simply, because we were talking about the revolution of the makers. Well, in fact, what is a maker? And I mean, there is a huge gap sometimes in the different communities, and we were here, I mean, to challenge and to try to make things understand. And I think that we addressed this point. Then we have tried to gather people from very different perspectives and horizon, and I think that's very important to when trying to build up something on a territory, is to mix the people, especially in this institution, because you all know how split they usually are, especially within a political agenda, which was the case in the Bordeaux region. And the last thing, of course, is to make the bridge with local issue. And I think we also were very successful in this, because we try to focus on issues such as mobility, of course, which is a very great challenge in Bordeaux, but also on subjects such as, of course, innovation, but not only open data, open government also. And all these subjects make the difference, and I think that, well, we achieved a very interesting moment. We had lots of people there. Just to wrap up, we hope to have this event next year. Maybe we will have the chance to do it, and we'll probably try to strengthen the link with the international targets, I mean, and publics.
Thank you. I'm pleasantly surprised how disciplined all of you were to stick to the time. So, round of applause. So, before I open the floor to questions and answer, as a moderator, I reserve a privilege to ask the first question. So, I wanted to know if your cities have any plans to do any systematic mapping or impact assessment studies, or even life cycle analysis of idling assets that have a potential to be shared. But hold your answer. First, I will collect perhaps 2 or 3 more questions from the audience. So now it's your show time, so please be provocative with your questions, be politically incorrect, don't hesitate. Who wants to raise your hand? Otherwise, if you don't have any questions, I start with my nasty ones. So you better. 1 here, 2 there, 3.
Yeah, hi. I was wondering about Bordeaux. If you have built from your strengths in wine. Was there wine involved in this sharing festival?
Very good wine in Bordeaux?
No, no.
No?
Yeah,
wait,
of
no,
course.
hang on.
Sorry.
We collect questions and then you
Oh,
answer.
okay.
I just wanted to know a bit more about what you're doing in Rio. As far as I understand, is that you're trying to collect ideas from the grassroots, and try to implement them through academics and the local government. But can you give us examples of exactly, in practice, what this means?
I hope you have a question for Genton Amsterdam, otherwise they feel lonely. No, you don't.
This is a question for everyone or whoever wants to answer it. I'm from Dublin in Ireland, and a lot of community kind of grassroots organisations are trying to change the city, doing kind of things like you're doing. So my question is, what advice would you give to kind of community catalysts who are trying to work with councils in their cities in order to kind of maybe change their thinking or work with them?
Thanks a lot. So the first question was about mapping of assets. Who wants to answer? Anyone? Points? Mapping assets?
There are some initiatives from the civil society, but our government is still dipping their feet on that matter. So they were, last year there was a public calling for to rent, I guess, 6 or 7 buildings in the city center, which was not used, but it was used more like a test to see the demand and see if people could structure projects. It was very good, actually, but still very bureaucratic and very governmentalistic. You know.
So let's go to the Bordeaux wine.
No, the wine community was not really involved in the first edition because we wanted through this event to forget that Bordeaux it was not just all about wine. Bordeaux is very famous for it, and we wanted to raise awareness on other issues of the Bordeaux industry, especially in new technologies or in environment. But maybe in the next edition we'll have the chance, and I think it's certainly a good point to associate the wine community, of course.
There's something else in life than wine, I keep reminding myself. Your question about Rio, was it partially answered, but perhaps?
Okay, I'll try to explain quickly, so try to stay with me. We wanted people to participate in the process of innovation in the city. So we developed the process divided in 5 steps. And the first step was to collect ideas. We received 1,700 ideas, so 1,700 ideas from everywhere, from almost 120 neighborhoods. And they could be very simple or very complicated. The first insight was ideas should be it should be very easy for people to send their ideas. So it shouldn't be a very structured project, or could be, but not definitely. So we received these ideas, these insights, and we got, the second phase was a very hard trouble we got for us to analyze, select, and improve these ideas, to select 26 of them, okay? It involved 120 people in this process, most of them volunteers wanting to improve the city. And then we went to a voting phase. So we voted for 13 best ideas, the 26, we chose 13 out of 26 in an open vote. We got almost 100,000 votes from all around the city. And now we are starting to implement the best 13 ideas in the city with the help of the government, the city hall, and a company, some companies actually. The university enters the process in helping us to analyze these ideas and see the legal issues, the economic issues of the ideas, etc. And then they will come back to measure the impact of these ideas, make a report for the local government, so they can scale up the ideas that are best suited for the city. So. uh, like special trash can to reduce litter on the beach, or to create free zones of Wi-Fi and coffee in squares to make people meet more in the streets, in the squares, to work, to discuss, and etc. It's very, very broad.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Theo. I'll ask Philip and Carlien to get back to the question of our friend from Ireland.
Can you summarize it?
That's a good question. So, a request to summarize the question again.
It's hard.
Okay, just quite simply, can you hear me? Yeah. What would you advise organisations who are trying to work with their local councils who mightn't think the same way? So maybe trying to do initiatives like sharing initiatives on the street or getting people together. But obviously, I don't think you can hear me. Okay.
I can't understand.
Well, those who can, what advice would you give to people working with councils who aren't as forward thinking? And you have to tick boxes. And if what you're trying to do doesn't tick a box, then how can you meet with the rules and regulations, I guess?
You're referring to people inside the council or outside of the... Inside the council. So, you go.
It's not easy. I already said that it's for people in the local government, it's very difficult because in former times we had the power and we could decide everything. Now things have changed, and it's very important. It's good. Things have changed, and people have wishes. They take initiative, and the local governors of the local government is not the only one who decides. Bon, so in our government there are some people who are a bit afraid of it. So the only thing you can do is let the practice speak. We have some initiatives in Ghent, and we try to people came with propositions. We try to facilitate it, and if it works, it's good. And the other people in the local government see, oh, that's quite interesting. For example, for the moment, the last week, I started. The people started with my collaboration, what we call Leefstraat, and it's kind of livable streets, not the streets with full of traffic, but they design it themselves with the parklets. I've seen just the former speaker, and so on. They have barbecues, they have tables, they have trees there. They design it themselves, but it's temporary. So it's for 2 months, and you can see that people are very happy with the initiative. So if I go to there and I take other people of the local government with me, they see it's interesting, that people are glad, that people are taking initiative, and that they are a part of the city. And so it's something that happens very slowly, but the best practice is, or the best test, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. It's the same here.
Okay, what I want to add to that is, yesterday there were some speakers talking about the fact that the sharing economy is about democratizing. Sorry for that. To democratize. Sorry, the economy instead of having top-down centralized institutions. But we have to remember that the government itself is a very centralized institution, and also the city council is, because we have all kind of political parties having taken into account the national policy, etc. So it's all about centralizing. And the public, it was also the question of Marco, asked us to do some mapping about, and what I think it was the man from Bologna who said the public officer should stop with mapping, but also should focus on recognize that what is already there. And I think that's a sort of mind shift. You have to stop with mapping, but you have to start with recognizing and facilitating that what is already there. And it's a mental shift that has to be made. And it's also, it's not only the government itself what has to do to work on that mental shift, but it's also the public, because they ask all the time for to the government for mapping things, but that's not the way it works anymore.
Excellent. Okay, so we have 8 minutes and 3 seconds, which allows us for 2 more questions. Perhaps somebody in the back. We tackled the front before. Someone in the back. Anybody? Anybody here? Questions for cities? No? Ah, you were shy. You and okay.
I will try it in English, perhaps if not in French. I'm coming from Berlin, and in Berlin there are many citizens who try also to participate, but there have been processes also when after the process of deciding together, the government had, or the of a city has made completely other things. Right now, the citizens in Berlin are well, some are very critical about citizen participation because they feel a little bit ils se sont traités en fait pas pris au sérieux en fait. Yeah. Okay. And I wanted to know how to deal with this, if you have this in the mind, because I think it's an important point. Also, because it's appointing people, and after they lose the willing to participate in politics and all this stuff, it's a big deal, I think.
Anyone else?
How do we connect cities in order to share learnings and amplify what's already happening? Because there's no doubt that there's incredible work happening in certain cities, but in lots of other places that's not the case, so that other people are able to discover that. So we run an initiative called Global Sharing Day, which takes place on the 1st of June, and that is an opportunity for people to celebrate the sharing economy, but to connect with each other across boundaries and cities, and actually allow other people who don't know about this space to be able to discover it. And my question is really about, isn't the task in hand to find a way of connecting and amplifying and enabling an open access for all so that we can share this great work that's happening?
Excellent question. And if I may add, one of them is how to mitigate the unintended effect of outdated regulation. We haven't really discussed about that, did we? And how to promote and incentivize investments. I mean, this is what we badly need. So if you can fit within your answer also these 2 concerns of mine. Otherwise, who wants to come back to our colleague from Berlin? Carlin.
I will give it a try. I think you asking how to get citizens permanently involved and to participate and give them the feeling that they are taken seriously. Yes, it's not. I recognize the thing that talking about citizen participation is a very trendy thing to do. You know, it's one thing to talk about it, and it's a second thing to actually put it into practice. I can give one example where we are thinking about. It's not, in fact, within the city council, but on a sort of platform that's a sort of marketplace for enabling people to support each other, giving care to each other. What we discovered that is we are all people with a sort of background in policy making, law, etc. And we are not really trained to get the attention of people. It may seem strange, but it really is. Politicians are you know, they studied economics and law and that kind of things. What we discussed is that we wanted to involve people from the gaming industry, because they have one certain thing that they must be good at to design a game, is that they should be able to get the people continuously playing the game. That's what they are doing. So we must have other types of skills in order to attract people to participate on those platforms. And we have to go outside our natural context to get those sort of skills into our decision making.
I only have in participation 2 rules, and that's 1, be clear, 2, be honest. Be clear, if there is a problem, say it. To say at citizens that they can do something and don't mention the problems, that's not good. Be clear and be honest. With be honest, I mean, if you say to citizens, you can take initiatives, we will facilitate, okay, even if the result is not as I like, they can do it. But because I had said, they can do it. So be clear, be honest. It's the only 2 rules that count in participation.
Yeah, I agree. You have to be transparent. The problem with people not feeling they are taken seriously is because maybe they are not. So my advice to politicians is take people seriously. Like pay attention on that, and because whether you like it or not, it's the new world. People want to participate. People have to participate. Otherwise, you cannot solve the social problems you have in your hands anymore in a top-down way. So.
Okay. Stefan, you want to make the last point? No, you're okay. But very, very quick, huh?
You wanted to ask, you asked us to say something about policy reform, yes? Okay, I will do it very quickly. First of all, we should recognize that most law and regulations are national based, so there are not much laws we can do as cities ourselves. But I want to give you one example regarding the parking permissions in the city. In Amsterdam, we have a policy that gives our inhabitants the permission to park in a certain area. But that will raise problems if you share your car. And one of the things we should think about is that we give the participants on sharing cars platforms the ability to park the car all over Amsterdam, for example. That are the small things we can do and we have to think about. And sometimes you just have to put some new policy into place to see how it works. And you cannot foresee everything, so we have to do, like you said, the proof of the pudding is in the eating sometimes. So that's what is necessary.
Excellent. Thanks a million. It's the end of the panel, so a round of applause for our panelists.